From 260 miles above the Earth, you're looking live at the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency's HTV-X1 cargo craft, poised for its departure from the International Space Station less than 15 minutes from now to complete its 4.5-month mission at the outpost, to which it delivered more than 4 tons of supplies and scientific experiments for the residents of the orbital laboratory. Good day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at Mission Control here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The HTV-X1 is grappled to the Canadarm2 robotic arm in its release position, having been maneuvered to that position about 4 hours ago, following its detachment yesterday from the Earth-facing port of the Harmony module. The detachment of HTV-X1 represented the completion of, as we said, about a 4.5-month mission at the International Space Station. Yesterday, the vehicle was maneuvered in front of the Harmony module for a sensor data demonstration collection exercise to support the development of the HTV-X3 docking demonstration. The HTV-X1 was maneuvered to 9 different unique positions in front of the Harmony forward port for data gathering yesterday.
Just a friendly reminder that we are in the no exercise block.
Copies, no exercise.
Here in Mission Control, spacecraft communicator Amy Dill talking to Jessica Meir on board the International Space Station. On the bottom of your screen is the lead flight director for the HTV-X1 mission, Fiona Antkowiak. To her right is Amy Dill, and to Dill's right is JAXA astronaut Aki Hoshide, a veteran of HTV operations with the legacy HTV cargo vehicle when he flew aboard the International Space Station several years ago. Once HTV-X1 is released, that release time is expected right at the top of the hour at 11 a.m. Central Time, high noon Eastern Time. It will then begin to depart the vicinity of the International Space Station. Some 7 minutes after its release, there will be an engine firing called a single burn departure maneuver, or SDM-1 burn, of 36.5 seconds in duration to increase its departure velocity by 0.45 meters per second, allowing it to depart the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Some 40 minutes after release from the robotic arm, the Canadarm2, we will complete the integrated operations between Mission Control here in Houston and the JAXA Flight Control Room in Tsukuba, Japan. The HTV-X1 will depart in a trajectory that will carry it above the International Space Station and then behind the station. The HTV-X1 will raise its orbit to some 311 miles, some 50 miles higher than the International Space Station, for the start of about 99 days of experiment operations as a scientific platform, if you will, for the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. There will be the release of a small satellite, an SSOD as it's called, a small satellite orbital deployer demonstration. There will be another experiment demonstration about a month from now called Mount Fuji. The Mount Fuji experiment is designed to characterize satellite laser ranging technology, and then very late in its free-flying time on orbit before it is deorbited some 3.5 months from now, HTV-X1 will support the deployment of a CubeSat and a deployable antenna demonstration called Delight. So there's a lot of miles yet to go for the HTV-X1 following its release from the International Space Station. The release today is being commanded by the robotics flight controller here in Mission Control. It's called a ground-controlled release. Chris Williams, the NASA astronaut who has been on board since last November, he is in the cupola of the International Space Station. He'll be monitoring the departure of HTV-X1 until it is beyond the point of the approach ellipsoid, at which time integrated operations will come to an end.
And Houston Station on 2, HTV-X lights are visible.
Copy.
The journey of HTV-X1 began back on October 25th with its launch from the Tanegashima Space Center in southern Japan on a Japanese H3 rocket. JAXA delivered the HTV-X1 into a perfect orbit with its release from the second stage of the H3 rocket occurring some 15 minutes after liftoff from that island-based launch site in southern Japan. After a 4-day journey to the International Space Station, HTV-X1 arrived in the vicinity of the International Outpost, and the reverse of what we're about to see here today occurred when the crew on board the station, at that time led by Kimiya Yui of JAXA, reached out with the Canadian-built robotic arm and grappled HTV-X1, maneuvered it into position for its installation on the nadir or Earth-facing port of the Harmony module, at which point it began its 4.5-month cargo delivery mission of about 4 tons of supplies and scientific experiments. Today, in just a few minutes, about 8.5 minutes from now, we'll be seeing the snares open up on the end effector of the Canadian-built robotic arm, and the arm will then back away to represent the actual release of HTV-X1. It will be released over the Pacific Ocean. Currently, the International Space Station is flying 260 miles over the Pacific in a trajectory of northwest to southeast, and an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. About 40 minutes ago, Flight Director Fiona Antkowiak went around the room here in Mission Control to get a go, no-go for the release of HTV-X1. All the positions pulled go here in Mission Control, and so the Japanese cargo vehicle, the new generation of cargo carrying vehicles for the International Space Station and for future exploration activities on behalf of JAXA, is ready to begin its independent journey before it is ultimately deorbited to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. The HTV-X1 is 26 feet long, 14.5 feet wide. The legacy HTV of years ago had its solar cells wrapped around the fuselage of the spacecraft. This vehicle has deployable solar array paddles, as they are called, by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and there's a good view as we have entered an orbital sunrise over the Pacific Ocean of the HTV-X1 vehicle. Coming up on about the 6.5-minute mark until the command is issued by the robotics officer to open up the snares on the end effector of the Canadian-built robotic arm. So we'll be standing by to listen for that. And then the arm will back away from HTV-X1. Again, some 7.5 minutes after its release, the engine on the HTV-X1 will fire in what is the SDM-1 burn, as it's called, the single burn departure maneuver that will increase the opening rate between HTV-X1 and the International Space Station to 0.45 meters per second, allowing it to back away from the International Outpost to a safe distance for the beginning of its free flight scientific platform operations. Today's departure of HTV-X1 represents the first of 2 unpiloted cargo craft departures from the station. Next Thursday, March 12th, the Northrop Grumman Cygnus NG-23 spacecraft, the SS Willie McCool, will have a similar departure profile. Basically, it will be grappled and detached from its berthing port on the Earth-facing side of the Unity module, basically the parking place next door to where HTV-X1 was berthed. The SS Willie McCool will be released, again ground-controlled released by the robotics officer here in Mission Control, and will depart for a 48-hour free flight before it is deorbited on Saturday, March 14th. The departure of the Cygnus, the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft, is scheduled for next Thursday morning, March 12th, with our coverage beginning at 5:45 a.m. Central Time, 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time, for a release 15 minutes later. And the JAXA flight director at Scuba, the JAXA flight control room in Scuba, has given Flight Director Fiona Antkowiak here in Mission Control in Houston their green light, the go, for the release of HTV-X1 just 4 minutes from now.
For Chris, ground teams have pulled go for release. Stand by for steps 3 and 4.
Copy all, standing by for steps 3 and 4.
The window is now open for the release of HTV-X1. The preferred time, however, is right at the top of the hour at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time. Countdown clocks here in Mission Control ticking backward toward the release of HTV-X1 to complete its 4.5-month mission at the International Space Station. As mentioned earlier, once HTV-X1 is flying free, it will spend about 99 days supporting scientific experiment work on behalf of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency before it is commanded to deorbit, where it will harmlessly burn up over the Pacific Ocean. The robotics officer reporting back to Flight Director Fiona Antkowiak that we are on track for an on-time opening of the snares on the end effector of the Canadarm2, which is currently grappled to HTV-X1. We are inside 2 minutes now from expected release. The International Space Station currently flying 260 miles over the Pacific Ocean, moving from northwest to southeast. Its orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, coming up on 1 minute till release. The departure of HTV-X1 being monitored by NASA astronaut Chris Williams in the cupola. This view now from the end effector on Canadarm2. Once the snares are open and the robotics officer issues the command for the arm to back away, we'll confirm the release time, and you'll see the arm slowly moving away from HTV-X1. That's coming up in about 30 seconds.
We are proceeding with release. Perform steps 3 and 4 in 1.602.
Mission copies 3 and 4 in 1.602.
And the robotics officer has now issued the release command to the end effector. It will take just a few seconds for those snares to open. And the release has been commanded. Release occurring at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time. HTV-X1 now flying free over the central Pacific Ocean. We'll see the end effector view of Canadarm2 backing away from HTV-X1 momentarily. HTV-X1 reported to be rock solid as the end effector begins to back away. A good view of the Canadarm2 backing away from the HTV-X1. Once again, the release occurred right on time at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew 260 miles over the central Pacific Ocean. We're about 5 minutes away from HTV-X1 executing its single burn departure maneuver.
Houston, Station 10 has exited the lead. Go for back away.
Copy. Proceeding with back away.
Now that the end effector has clearance from the grapple fixture on HTV-X1, the robotics officer here in Mission Control, operating the arm, is sending commands to continue the back-away procedure. And the arm now in motion. You'll be able to see that full grapple fixture momentarily.
I'll be back away in progress.
HTV-X1 arrived at the station and was grappled back on October 29th and berthed to the Earth-facing port of the Harmony module for its cargo delivery mission. With that having been completed, the maiden flight of this new generation of Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency cargo craft, which will also be applicable for future exploration activities, is now coming to an end, at least as far as the station is concerned. 3 minutes away from HTV-X1 executing its single burn departure maneuver. Flight controllers reporting the HTV-X1 systems are in good shape, no issues. All of its global positioning system sensors are all functioning normally as it calculates its position relative to the International Space Station and the Earth itself. The robotics officer now reports that the Canadarm2 has completed its back-away, if you will, moving a safe distance away from HTV-X1. We're about a minute away from the vehicle executing its departure burn.
And also for pan tilt cameras as needed.
Copy, go for step 4 and go for pan tilt cameras as needed. Retreat, execute is sent.
Houston, copy.
And Chris Williams from the cupola confirming that the vehicle has armed its burn capability. This STM-1 burn, if you will, expected to last about 36.5 seconds to increase its opening rate from the station by about 0.45 meters per second.
And Houston, station on 2. We see the VV mode in RP departure and retreat is commanded.
Houston, copies.
We're about 1 minute away from the start of the departure burn. The command to execute the burn has been loaded into the onboard computers on HTV-X1.
Station Houston on 2, departure burn loaded and will execute shortly. Monitor per steps 5 and 6 in 1.602.
Copy all, monitoring for steps 5 and 6.
The visiting vehicle officer reports navigational data for the HTV-X1 is looking very good. The vehicle systems are solid as we're coming up here in just a few seconds for the start of the departure burn. And the burn is underway. The burn, once again, about 36 seconds in duration. to accelerate the opening rate between the cargo craft and the International Space Station, enabling HTV-X1 to exit the first of two boundaries in the neighborhood of the station called the Keep-Out Sphere. That will be followed about 20 minutes later by its departure from the approach ellipsoid, which will bring to an end integrated operations between Mission Control here in Houston and the JAXA Flight Control Room in Tsukuba, Japan. And the departure burn now complete. Burn looked good.
Departure burn complete. Verify and monitor per step 7.
Copy. Verifying monitoring for step 7.
Twenty-four-hour safe trajectory confirmed.
Station copies.
That call from spacecraft communicator Amy Dill to NASA astronaut Chris Williams in the cupola of the station, confirming that HTV-X1 is on the proper trajectory to move to a position above and behind the International Space Station, well away from the complex, to begin its 3-month scientific mission as a platform supporting several scientific investigations for JAXA. A good view of the canted solar array paddles that provide the power generation for HTV-X1. We are in a brief handover with our tracking and data relay satellite system communications network. We'll be reacquiring a view of HTV-X1 from the space station external cameras here momentarily. It all went by the book this morning, with HTV-X1 departing the International Space Station with its release from the Canadarm2 robotic arm on time at 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 noon Eastern Time, as the station flew 260 miles over the Central Pacific. Here in Mission Control, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers on console at this hour, led by Flight Director Fiona Antkowiak. At the bottom of your screen, to her right, spacecraft communicator Amy Dill, whose voice you have heard communicating with Chris Williams of NASA aboard the International Space Station. And to her right is JAXA astronaut Aki Hoshide, a veteran of HTV operations during his tenure on previous flights to the International Space Station.
send Sophie on 2 for next activity.
Hey, Sophie, I've got some words on the hatch seal for you when you're ready to copy.
I am ready to copy.
Okay, we've been tracking about 10 days ago. You and Chris saw some white residue on the airlock IV hatch at about the 5 o'clock location. So we have a procedure for you to perform 1.1.521 for U.S. hatch seal inspection. You're going to start in step 2.17, to vacuum first, and if not successful, the procedure will vector you to try to clean it with potable water and a lint-free absorbent paper. How copy so far?
Good copy. So procedure 1.1.521, and then starting step 2.17 for vacuum first, and then next steps in case it doesn't work.
Excellent copy. So you'll reference the tools list in the procedure. Most are crew deployed, but I'll give you stowage locations for 2 that you might need that for. First is for the AC dry vacuum brush tool. That's located in Node 2, Deck 4, and a 1.0 CTB, serial number 1008, and that's for the NOM Operations AC dry vacuum cleaner. And then the second item is for lint-free absorbent paper. That's going to be deployed in the airlock in the EMU servicing kit, serial number 5005.
Okay, AC dry vacuum, Node 2, Deck 4, CTD 1.01008, and lint-free absorbent paper in the EMU servicing kit 5005.
Good copy. All right, that's all that we think you need. Let us know if you have any questions.
No questions for now, and that's in work.
Thank you much.
You're very welcome.
That conversation between spacecraft communicator Amy Dill and European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeno of Expedition 74 aboard the station regarding some housekeeping activities in the Quest airlock.
Thank you, Chris and HTV-X. Arigato.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful having HTV-X here. It really brought a lot of joy to us and a lot of joy to the station. We're really happy that we had such a wonderful mission with it. So thank you to everyone on the ground and at JAXA and all over the world that helped make this mission a success. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu.
The vehicle has exited the first of the 2 boundaries around the International Space Station, that being the keep-out sphere. The next call will be coming up shortly with the exiting of HTV-X1 from the approach ellipsoid. That will terminate integrated operations between Mission Control here in Houston and the JAXA Flight Control Room in Tsukuba, Japan. You heard the words between Amy Dill, the spacecraft communicator, and NASA's Chris Williams, who viewed the departure of HTV-X1 from the cupola of the station, which is currently flying 260 miles over the South Atlantic, having just crossed the southern tip of South America, now moving in a Trajectory inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator from southwest to northeast. As mentioned earlier, this is the first of two unpiloted cargo craft departing the station within a week. Next Thursday, the Northrop Grumman NG-23 Cygnus cargo craft, the SS Willie McCool, will duplicate the activities you've just seen with the HTV-X1 being released robotically from the Canadarm2 robotic arm to begin its departure from the station, having completed its cargo delivery activities at the International Outpost. We will provide live coverage of the Cygnus departure from the station next Thursday morning, March 12th. Coverage beginning at 5:45 a.m. Central, 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time for its robotic release 15 minutes later. And again, HTV-X1 is now phasing into an orbit above and behind the International Space Station for the start of its scientific platform support of several scientific investigations for the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, before it is scheduled to complete its mission about 99 days from now. Aboard the International Space Station, meanwhile, as the HTV-X1 departure activities have been ongoing, the rest of the crew aboard the station has been busy with a variety of activities, end-of-the-week housekeeping, as well as packing items no longer needed on the station inside the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft for its departure next Thursday morning. And external cameras on the station, still with a view of HTV-X1 and its canted solar array paddles. HTV-X1 still in the field of view, soon to exit the so-called approach ellipsoid, which is the last of the two boundaries that comprise the neighborhood of the International Space Station. HTV-X1 backlit as it continues an opening rate away from the International Space Station. We're about 17 minutes away from its departure from the approach ellipsoid, that final boundary between it and the International Space Station. We expect one final call to the crew at that point, and now a much better view of HTV-X1 as it begins its 3-month scientific mission in support of experiment investigations on behalf of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. And once again, we're in a gap between coverage on our tracking and data relay satellite system. We'll regain our downlink capability from the station in just a few moments. Just to recap, the HTV-X1 was detached from its berthing port on the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module yesterday, unbolted basically, 16 bolts holding it in place for the past 4.5 months while it supported cargo delivery operations. The robotics officer had previously grappled HTV-X1, then maneuvered it last night into a position in front of the Harmony module to conduct a sensor data collection demonstration. 9 different orientations for HTV-X1 to verify its ability to gather and process data.
Welcome to come on board if you want to.
Copy, Sophie. We're discussing if we'll join you on board.
Once the sensor demonstration had been completed, the vehicle was left in an overnight park position at the end of the Canadarm2 robotic arm before being maneuvered to its final release position early this morning. After a final systems check and a green light having been given by the flight control team here in Houston, as well as the JAXA flight control team in Tsukuba, Japan, which is in charge of HTV-X1 operations, the vehicle was released on the ground-controlled command of the robotics officer here in Mission Control, right on time at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew 260 miles over the central Pacific Ocean. We're just a few minutes away from HTV-X1 now departing the so-called approach ellipsoid. That is the final boundary, essentially a racetrack type of boundary that marks the end of the neighborhood of the International Space Station relative to the cargo vehicle itself. There should be a final call to the crew at that point, just to make sure that they understand that the HTV-X1 has completed its joint mission between JAXA flight controllers in Tsukuba, Japan, and the flight control team here in Houston. And the crew will move on to the rest of its day's activities, mostly comprising of exercise periods before they move into a sleep period later today.
Houston Station, JAXA on 2 for troubleshooting in my PIN AC inverter power on activity, step 4.
With you.
Okay, step 4, I powered on switch 2 on the inverter and did a reset test or reset on the GFCI, and the GFCI green light is kind of intermittent and light. Not as usually they come on bright and solid, and this is kind of lighter and intermittent. It does look like the AdLink Mini PC is holding power steady downstream of that, though.
Thanks for the report, Jack. We are good with the config.
Awesome. Great news. Thanks.
Eastern Station, Sophie and 2 for airlifts.
Go ahead.
So the vacuum attenuated a little bit, a tiny bit, but not enough, I think. So I will go for the lid-free option. And so just a question, since I have the vacuum cleaner deployed, do you want me to vacuum the whole seat around?
Not required, Sophie. Yeah, we just wanted you to concentrate on where that white was on the hatch seal.
Okay, so I'll proceed with the next step then.
We concur.
The JAXA flight control team in Tsukuba estimating that HTV-X1 will be departing the approach ellipsoid about 6.5 minutes from now. So we'll be standing by for that final milestone before we wrap up our coverage for the day. As the HTV-X1 prepares to depart the vicinity of the International Space Station, the attention for the crew will be the completion of packing of items no longer needed on the complex into the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft, the NG-23, the SS Willie McCool, for its departure from the station next Thursday morning. The Cygnus cargo craft will be robotically released, just as HTV-X1 was earlier this morning. It will fly free for about 2 days before it is commanded to deorbit by the Northrop Grumman flight controllers in Dulles, Virginia. The International Space Station is flying from southwest to northeast, approaching the west coast of Africa, flying at an altitude of 260 statute miles. And again, we're back with a live view from external cameras on the station as HTV-X1 fades from view, about to depart the approach ellipsoid in about 4 minutes. This is Mission Control Houston. We're standing by for confirmation of HTV-X1 having departed the approach ellipsoid. That should be coming up momentarily following its departure from the International Space Station, with a robotic release occurring about 43 minutes ago at the top of the hour at 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern Time.
Houston Station, Sophian 2 for Aerospace.
Go ahead.
So just mention the Ziploc bag with the lint-free absorbent paper didn't have any label on it, but it really looks like lint-free absorbent paper, so just wanted to have your go.
You've got the right paper per the video.
Right, so going on to the next one.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. We've had confirmation that the HTV-X1 has now exited the approach ellipsoid.
And Station Houston on 2 for awareness, HTV-X has exited the approach ellipsoid.
Station copy. Thanks for the update. And can you verify that the exercise constraint is listed now?
And it is verified. You are go for exercise.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Amy.
This is Mission Control Houston. Spacecraft communicator Amy Dill confirming to the crew on board the International Space Station that HTV-X1 has exited the approach ellipsoid, the final boundary, if you will, for the neighborhood of the station that terminates and completes successfully integrated operations between Mission Control here in Houston and the JAXA Flight Control Team in Tsukuba, Japan. So it all went by the book this morning with a very smooth robotic release of HTV-X1 to wrap up its 4.5-month cargo delivery mission to the International Space Station. HTV-X1 now flying free in support of about 3+ months of scientific investigations on behalf of JAXA. And with that, we'll wrap up our coverage of the HTV-X1 departure for today. We wish you a good weekend, and stay tuned with us because there's a lot more operational activity on tap for the crew on board the International Space Station. For now, we'll bid you a great weekend. This is Mission Control Houston.